All right, so I picked this one because I do have some opinions on this, but I want to get your opinions first. So, multi-accounting in Web3 gaming. We know that when it comes to just Web2 gaming or even some Web3 gaming, is like there are leaderboards, and if you're playing multiple accounts, you could take up multiple slots on that leaderboard. Even when it came to a game like Axie Infinity, when I started playing that a few years ago, they had against their terms of condition or terms of service is that you couldn't play multiple accounts, and they would like ban your assets, ban your account. Is that necessary? And if you think it's necessary, how do you really regulate that? Like, should Web3 games have that in their terms of service that you can only play one account, or should it just be a free for all, just like I think crypto was meant to be? Jimbo, why don't you start with this one? What do you got? Any thoughts on that?
What, dude? Who is complaining about multi-accounting, bro? Like, first off, if you have multiple accounts and top 10 on the leaderboard of a game, you deserve to get that payout because you're that fucking good. Like, I'm sorry. Like, it just is what it is. And like people playing on um different accounts at the same time. Okay, first off, and this isn't my full point, but first off, how are you going to stop that? And second off, again, why do you care? If someone is putting in more work than you, they deserve to have more. That is just common sense. Get over it or start multi-accounting yourself, put the work in, and you can get the same out of it that they are. This is like some crybaby libtard bullshit, honestly.
Yeah,
Thirds, what's your thoughts on
yeah.
this?
I mean, I think that it's part of crypto, and it's part of also just gaming. If you're good and you can make multiple accounts and you can climb ladders and you can get rewards, then you're entitled to do so. I think that where it gets a bit controversial and where people might start bitching is when you get into the botting realm, where, okay, are people actually playing those games with multiple accounts and getting those rewards with multiple accounts legitimately, or are they botting? And that is a question to really ask the developers and how they're going to combat that, because the botting exists, it will always exist. There are some games that are better at creating anti-bot software for their games than others. And then there are also some games that allow botting and don't really focus too much on botting, because at the end of the day, botting also brings them money. So there's a bit of a balance that needs to be had with a topic like botting. But in terms of multi-accounting, it should be allowed.
Yeah,
There's no issue with it.
I'm with you on that. Like if you're doing multiple accounts and you're botting on those multiple accounts, I think that should be an issue. I know Illuvium, for example, they've tried to set up their game in a way that botting doesn't make sense. They've talked about that for a while. So instead of trying to put it in the terms of service that you can't do like multiple accounts or you can't do botting, they just make it so that doing it doesn't make sense. Scars, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I've got mixed opinions on this. So yeah, I think the first thing is enforceability, and I think a lot of, I guess this is more to do with botting, not so much multi-counting, is the game design. The game design, I know it's difficult and it puts more pressure on the devs to come up with intuitive systems to prevent botting or even multi-accounting. But that's how it should be instead of terms of service. Now, on the flip side, and this is probably me speaking from my poker background, when it affects the integrity of the game financially, so let's use poker an example. There's nine people playing on a table, and you've got three of the accounts. Obviously, you have more information. You have a huge advantage. I mean, it's more than just unethical at that point. I think a lot of other poker players would agree that that's borderline stealing from the other people on the table. So in game genres like that, where there is a direct negative consequence to your opponent because you do have an advantage, because you have more information or whatnot, then I'm definitely not on board with multi-accounting. But I mean, like I said, this is a very tough. It's a very tough situation because, yeah, where do you draw the line? I agree when Jimbo put it in that frame where he said, if I'm playing two accounts and I'm doing it legitimately and I'm putting in more work, then why shouldn't I get rewarded for that? Because I am putting in double the time. But then, if you're getting a distinct advantage, that's a little bit different. That's my opinion on that.
Yeah. And going to your poker example, I know there are ways to actually regulate that because I know there's a poker app that I play on that if you're playing from the same location, like the same IP address or even a close by IP address, it can bring up like a little warning or a little alert that tells the rest of the table that these two accounts are playing from the same area. So it can help in that kind of cheating. So in your example, if maybe there's something built into the software that like two people who are in the same geographic location aren't allowed to get matched up against each other or something like that.
Yeah, no, for sure. There's definitely ways around it. I think, my point is, maybe even in a game like TFT where in one lobby there's 2 or 3 people, maybe they're taking resources away from their opponents and stuff like that, those situations. But you're right. If there definitely are systems in place to prevent that. Yeah, 100%.
But just my opinions on this, like I'm kind of on board with what all you guys are saying. I think it should be allowed, and I actually think it's a good thing because I think of systems like scholarship systems. One could argue that, or like scholarships are multi-accounting because if I own 100 assets, whatever, let's say Axie for example, and I give out 3 Axies to 20 different people. Well, they're all coming from me, and I'm just using other people to play those multiple accounts. But all those other people are more people playing the game. Where, say, for example, that was banned and not allowed, there'd be no reason for me to hold on to 100 assets. I would just keep the 3 I need to play myself, sell the rest to the market. Then there's 20 people who may not be able to play the game at all because they can't afford it. And then the asset prices just go down because there's no reason for that whale to hold on to it. So with something like Illuvium, when we're on chain and you need to go out and either buy or find all these alluvials, if you have the resources and time to build up 2 competitive teams to fight on the leaderboard, I think that's a great thing. I think more people should try and do that. These good players who can play all day and have the money to do it, let them run multiple accounts. That's my take on it.
I agree with that, and it's decentralized gaming essentially. I know that a lot of Web3 gaming isn't entirely decentralized, but this is one of the aspects that if you're going to build a blockchain game, at least follow in some of the ethos of blockchains, which is a bit of decentralization. And multi-accounting is literally the purest form of decentralization.